Do you find yourself wishing you had more energy, healthier habits, or fun family activities? At the YMCA, you can find your passion, find family fun, and find your happy place, all while supporting your community. Join the Y in March with a $0 enrollment fee and enjoy motivating group exercise classes, heated pools, pickleball, and so much more. Visit ymcadc.org to learn more and to find your nearest Y in DC, Maryland, or Virginia today.
I am Iron Man. This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the InSession Film Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan McQuaid.
And I'm Jay Ledbetter.
Thanks for coming back to the show, guys. And this is something different than what we've been normally doing on the new YouTube show, the new formats. But for all of our audio listeners out there, you know what time it is.
Finally coming back.
They let us control this whole kingdom, Jay. This is a very dangerous thing for JD and Brendan to do tonight. But we are back by popular demand, actually, to be fair. We were getting a lot of responses from people saying, where are the movie series? The movies.
Ooh, boy.
And so we decided, you know what? We couldn't wait any longer. We had to come back and start doing a new series. So for many of you out there that don't know, Jay and I over at what used to be Extra Film, we did movie series every week, and we talked about things that were director focused. Sometimes they were series, franchises, and we dive deep into them. Jay would be the Mr. Completist, and I would sit over here and try to riddle off as many facts as I knew about the director. And we mostly are doing this project, Jay, right, to check off cinematic blind spots, right?
Yeah, that's certainly the case sometimes. I mean, sometimes we do Soderbergh, and it's like, yeah, you know what? I would love to watch the Ocean's movies again. You know,
yeah. Jay, are you a little parched? Because I could
little sody pop,
baby.
Well, you weren't even on the Soderbergh episode that we did on the main show recently here.
Yeah, I know. I was
me and JD.
I was like crawling through the desert trying to get to that soda pop.
But that was like, I felt like an expert on that episode. I was like, you want to go through every Soderbergh? Because I've done it. Yeah, I did it. Like
we both done it. We both did it, and we did the Riddler.
Yeah, we did the Riddler.
Yeah, Ridley Scott.
We didn't even finish Capra. Sorry.
No, sorry. Yeah, I guess it wasn't a wonderful life after all.
My bad.
We never went to Washington.
No, but I mean, in general, I would say, I think you and I would both agree, our favorite movie series have been the ones that have been about discovery. And at least for me, that's what this series is going to largely be. I don't know about your experience with our subject, Wong Kar-wai. But that is who we will be covering. But I have not a ton of experience with him. In fact, I was kind of doing my dive, and then I was just like, why don't we just do this on the podcast? You know, I've already started. Let's do it. And here we are. I think we love to kind of explore, you know, with Extra Film, we often explore independent international cinema. And now we're doing, you know, an international filmmaker in a movie series, which is very exciting, and especially one as renowned as Wong Kar-wai. It's going to be a great series. I'm very excited. I'm excited to talk about his first film here, which is not exactly what you think of when you think of Wong Kar-wai, but we're going to get into it.
No, it's not one you think of at all. But you know, the beauty about this series too is most of our homework is contained within a box set with the Criterion Collection, which
true.
I mean, Jay,
can we
talk about it
here for a second?
We got to talk about it.
The packaging of that box set is an abomination. It is such a pain
to get one disc.
That thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's very pretty.
It is gorgeous.
It's very gorgeous. But it's a task.
It's impractical. Because the thing is, here's the dirty little secret about Criterion. A lot of people just gonna let it sit on the shelves as some sort of status symbol, never break into it.
That's
Over
true.
here, we're breaking into them.
We break into a lot.
We're breaking
of our
into them
criterions.
like George Clooney into a Las Vegas safe.
Okay.
And let me tell you, it's just as complicated. It is just as complicated as that.
Yeah, I had to call Don Cheadle last week to get into mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's as beautiful as that packaging is, they got some fantastic essays in there and all that good stuff.
They have all the
Packaging.
good special effects.
And it's just like the
special features.
you know, a lot of the times the booklets, just give me a booklet. Don't give me like the map style booklet where it folds out like this.
Yeah.
And to read it, you know, just give me a book. Let me go through the pages, page by page. Anyway, Criterion, obviously great.
We love them.
But
how much
you
would you
pick nits every now and then?
Jay, how much would you pay to go into their Criterion closet?
Well, the whole point of it is that you don't pay.
I mean, how much would you pay?
Free
though?
stuff.
Would that be like one of your last wishes on the planet?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
It's not one of my last wishes. That would very much be a, you know, an I've made it moment kind of, you know, that would be extremely cool. So Criterion, if you're
Those
listening,
videos are addictive to watch.
they're pretty good. Some people are bad at them. You know whose was very good that I watched recently? Kyle MacLachlan. Very good one.
I mean,
Great one.
The one I watched recently was Blanchett and Field.
That was a good one too.
It was, you know, it's always better when you have a pair or a group. I think
Can be
because you're kind of sharing what your favorites are. You know, sometimes one person, it just feels like a little. But then you're like Barry Jenkins, and you get like the whole damn closet, and you're like, this is embarrassing and all that.
Well, I'll tell you what I've been enjoying recently. Semi-related. They just came out with the individual top 10s for all the sight and sound
sight and
lists.
sounds, yeah.
I've been loving that, just scrolling through and being
Who's
like,
been your favorite list so far? We're totally already off topic, but that's for our listeners out there. This is very much us.
Well, you know the one that I saw that I was like, oh, this is very much up my alley. Was are you familiar with the critic Bilge Ebiri?
Yes.
Great critic. Loved his list. He had Tree of Life on there. He had Barry Lyndon on here. He had Heat on there. Those are 3 of my 4. Those are 3 of my top 4, just right away, right there. They'd be on my list. He had some others on there that I thought were really good too, but those were the ones where I was like, okay, this guy is on my wavelength as far as, you know, the absolute cream of the crop. So,
I noticed that Spielberg, I don't believe, was asked to do it.
I'm sure he was asked.
Why didn't he do it?
I don't know. I was looking for. I was kind of scrolling through. I was like, let's see what Kelly Reichardt had on her list. Wasn't on there. You know, and I'm sure she was.
If
asked.
you were a director, would you put your own film on there?
Ooh, the Paul Schrader.
Yeah.
Would I pull a Schrader?
Would you pull a Schrader? Yeah. I mean, if your film is one of the greats of all time, wouldn't you do it?
Well, it is. The question is,
which one did Schrader put on there?
Should you speak on behalf of your film, or should you let the film speak for itself? You know,
I mean, if you're Paul Schrader, you're speaking for yourself and like a bunch of other people's out of the insane asylum. It seems like half the time.
Yeah, he's a wild man.
He's a wild man.
No, let's have Tree of Life on there. 10. David Lowery.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think if you watch his movies, he's got a.
Go listen to our top 10 movies of all time podcast.
That was a good
one.
Haven't that was
people.
good. But we're not, Jay. We're not here to talk about that.
I cried.
Yeah, you did cry a lot, but we're not here to talk about that.
No, we're not.
We're here to talk about Wong Kar-wai.
Of course, duh. Obviously,
we're like 8 minutes into this. We haven't even talked about Wong Kar-wai that much. That's what we do. This is what we do. They give us the controls, and we're already off on tangents. JD's probably like laughing at the fact that he's already given us this control. It's weird. So obviously, we're going to do all 10 because he has a perfect 10 films, kind of flat, not even have to go beyond that, which is great. So we're going to do that for the next 10 weeks. And then for all of our listeners out there, the next movie series, we already announced it. We're going to do Oliver Stone afterwards. So we're going to go from a very
rabbit holes,
very distinguished man, Wong Kar-wai, and then we're going to like, you know, guy that probably wears like tinfoil hats and in the dark channels of the web.
Who has basically lost all credibility in the modern age. Oliver Stone.
Yeah. Oh, can't wait. You know, Guy's won a ton of Oscars though, which is really interesting. Like,
I'm gonna have to read his biography. He came
I
out
think
with an autobiography,
that
and
might
apparently
be,
it's crazy.
that might be
And I'm gonna have to
probably one of the most insufferable reads you could probably ever do.
I've heard it's wild, and I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna check it out.
All right, so we're here for his first film, Wong Kar-wai's first film in our Wong Kar-wai movie series, and of course, it is directed by the great Wong Kar-wai, and it stars Andy Liu, Maggie Cheung, Jackie Cheung, Alex Mann. The movie is called As Tears Go By. Heard of it? And if so, it's about a mid-level gangster who falls in love with his beautiful cousin, but must also continue to protect his volatile partner in crime and friend, Fly. Jay, you said at the top of this that you weren't as familiar with, Wong Kar-wai's filmography as much as you would probably want to. That's why we're doing this series and everything. So this was, I would assume, a first-time watch for yourself.
Well, it was in December, and then I watched it again.
Okay. Well, yes. When you initially watched it.
For this.
Yeah, for this.
A very fresh watch.
So I'm curious for you what you think of As Tears Go By.
Yeah, this movie was certainly not what I was expecting as the first film from Wong Kar-wai, given his reputation. This is, in many ways, it's a pretty straightforward genre movie. It plays into tropes in pretty traditional ways. In fact, I got a book.
Here we go.
Been reading this book, of course.
For many of you out there, Jay always has books prepared for this. So
I like to have, a little, some reading
material
go along with our movie series.
Do you keep all the books, or do you end up
materials?
Do you end up selling them back?
No, I keep them.
Okay,
I don't know.
It's kind of like souvenirs for the
bucks.
Yeah, it's like souvenirs for the whole experiment.
Yeah, they are little trinkets where it's like, the good old days.
Oh, okay.
Remember when I did that Spike Lee series? That was a good time.
Remember when you did that David Lean one and it was like 900 pages?
It came out like right after we did our Billy Wilder series, like the definitive big Billy Wilder biography, which I own. I haven't read it yet, but I need to read it anyway. Wong Kar-wai. Jeez, we're all over the place.
We're all over the place. We haven't done one of these in a while. Yeah.
In many ways, it is kind of a traditional genre movie. In fact, as I was doing my reading, I saw an interview with director Wong where he said, there's definitely a lot of mean streets in there, no doubt about it. But he does consider this a very personal story, but he did say Fly is very much based on the De Niro character in Mean Streets. He's like, that's the one I borrowed. That's the one I borrowed for this film. And you definitely see that. And this film in many ways does play out like that film does, especially when, the use of Take My Breath Away, obviously Scorsese in Mean Streets, it's just like pop song, pop song, pop song, pop song, pop song. But in this film, I think it almost, the use of pop music is used to even greater effect because it is a little more limited. And the use of Take My Breath Away, that scene, I think is like remarkably good. And for all the times where you're like, oh, this is getting a little generic, then in the next moment, it will turn into this poetic triumph. I mean, really, from scene one, really, it's his purpose with the camera is immediately clear.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, just you have this overhead shot of him in the bed, and it's just like, that is not how normal people would shoot this movie. And you see that in almost every shot. It keeps you on your toes visually. I mean, there's a lot of great visual storytelling going on, even from the opening credits. You have these beautiful screens of this blue sky on the right side, which already gives this sort of sense of, artificial beauty, kind of this modern view of the natural world. And it's juxtaposed against this neon city just to the left of it on the same screen. And it's all about these juxtapositions, right? It's about this guy who is torn between loyalty and love, right? And that's something that we will certainly see more of in Wong Kar-wai's filmography. But you see the signatures of director Wong very early in this film, even if they're in kind of this embryonic stage. Because this is in many ways, this is riding off the wave of John Woo. This is a Hong Kong action movie in many ways. And there is one that the scene where he goes out and gets revenge for Fly in in the middle of the film where they utilize the slow motion, and and I was reading about how they did that. Instead of shooting 24 frames per second, he shot that in like 8 frames per second, and then repeated the frames a few times to give it this, like, I don't know, almost like strobe effect to the way that it plays out on screen with the slow-mo. And there's just so many kind of experimental, maybe not experimental, but certainly unique and auteuristic things going on in this film, where immediately you have this idea that this guy is playing a little bit of a different game while kind of playing on the same field in this film. He kind of creates his own rules. And it is this wonderfully, I mean, the visual storytelling here, the use of color, the compositions you're seeing here are really immaculate. And thematically, I think, again, you know, we've seen this before, this guy who feels so attached to this gang, to this life that he's leading. What does he really want? And Wong said in these interviews, he's like, you know what I still don't understand about this movie? I don't understand what our main character is driven by. He's like, I get everybody else. I still don't know what he's really going after. And that plays out in the film. And I think that is in many ways the point of the film. And it's done very, very well by him. And it is a film where you don't know what is coming next, even though the beats feel familiar, which is super fascinating. And I mean, I think it's a really, really strong debut. And especially considering, you know, he could have had a career where he was like, I'm going to make Hong Kong action movies forever. I'm going to make Police Story 6. And he would have been great at it. He would have made a great version of Police Story 6. But he went this different route, and you see the seedlings of that different route in this film, which I think is great. And it creates this kind of unique version of a film that we're kind of familiar with. Yeah.
So I think I agree with pretty much everything you said, and I'm going to just kind of dive into it as well. And that, you know, director Wong is somebody that I've seen a couple of his films, but I haven't seen the totality of his projects. I've seen In the Mood for Love, I've seen The Grandmaster, is it Happy Together, and I've seen the Nora Jones vehicle, My Blueberry Nights, which can't wait to talk about that. That'll be an interesting conversation. Jay,
his most beloved film.
Yeah, I mean the one that's really should have been on the Sight and Sound list. Is what we're saying. But like his early stuff is stuff that has eluded me at this point. So I'm glad that we're able to do this series. So then I can, especially Chungking Express. I think that is a movie to cross off the list of of blind
that's certainly
spots.
One of his totemic.
Exactly, it's films. The one that a lot of people really talk about. And but As Tears Go By, it's the first film, so you kind of take you kind of take every first film with a grain of salt, I believe, in anybody's filmography, especially someone that goes on to be known as a sort of a master of cinema. I mean, In the Mood for Love, we talk about Sight and Sounds, is in the top 10 now for the Sight and Sound list. So we're talking about somebody that has made one of the 10 greatest films of all time. So they have to be pretty damn good at their job. And I think from the get-go, you can tell with As Tears Go By, Director Wong is pretty goddamn good at his job, because you mentioned that this is a movie that is very much leaning on the familiarity of or nostalgia or the influences of something like Martin Scorsese's Mean Streets. And seeing Mean Streets recently, because we did do the Scorsese series, me and Sophia, last year. Not you, sorry.
I had a baby to deal with.
I know, you had Baby Jet, which is, I mean, of an excuses you're ever going to have, right? I have to say that he kind of takes Mean Streets, a movie that I think is that is a movie where it's doing two things at the same time. It's one, introducing this brand new style, almost of cinema, to American audiences, but it's also really introducing Martin Scorsese and really introducing the brand of Marty that we would get, not just within gangster films, but then within his voice and originality that we just didn't get within those first 3 films of his filmography. And Mean Streets really technically, even though it's like, I think it's like what, his 3rd or 4th film, it is essentially what a lot of people consider his debut. In terms
It's
of
the
being,
one that put
you
him
know,
on the map.
exactly. It's the one that made him Martin Scorsese. You know what I mean? But I think that movie is deeply flawed. It's a little long. It meanders at times.
It's good.
It's good.
You
it's just not great.
understand how important it was. You watch it and you're like,
Yeah, you're
"Whoa,
like,
this must
it's
have
one of
blown
those I
people's mind."
respect, but I'm
It's a
not
very
going back to it.
loud movie.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Stylistically.
yeah. It's
Look at me.
it's doing a lot. It's got a lot of Rolling Stones in it, so of course
It's
it's like,
good.
oh, it's
It's
a
good,
Martin
though.
Scorsese movie. Yeah, I think it's fine. But then I watched this movie and I go, somebody watched that movie and said, I think I could possibly do it better than that. And I think I can take things from it. And I think I can also add complexities, because I think these characters are very complex. I think there's a lot of world building and character building from just conversations and interactions that you get, that this sort of slum crime world that they're living in is very, for a first time director, it's very lived in and it's very real, you know. And these struggles are, we have this character who is just, you know, the Harvey Keitel sort of character of Wah. He's kind of like the coolest looking guy in the room, but he's not the biggest muscle. He's not the you know, the best big brother is what they call him, which are sort of like they're the leaders of their own factions around the city. And what I love about this is that the movie is doing things that I think we're going to see a lot with Wong Kar-wai, which is mixing in this complicated yet tender romance of a very awkward, forbidden, maybe even love between someone and his cousin.
Yeah, you gotta kind of put yourself in a different cultural mindset.
Time. You got to put yourself in 1988 and not
In Hong Kong.
2023 in Hong
Yes.
Kong and not in America. But don't they establish like she's like a second cousin at the beginning, like very distant second cousin? Or
I
something
don't
like that?
know that they
They're-
ever actually established
from the
that, but I
aunt,
think
like the
people
aunt
to
said
tell
that?
them that. I don't think they ever say second cousin.
No,
think
I
they're just
thought like in the
younger
conversation,
cousin.
the aunt at the beginning says something along like those lines, or like it's from your uncle on this side or something like that. They're not directly related, but it's not like it's still not a problem. You know what I mean? Like it's still not like a
cousin is
a word,
the
you know?
regular word used to describe
exactly.
them.
So you have this complicated relationship, obviously, in the film. And yes, then you have these flourishes of just wonderful, beautiful, striking, slow motion uses of camera. Obviously, his use of how these action sequences are very low, very highly, I think, elevated.
which is not something you think of when you think of Wong Kar-wai.
No, you don't. That's why it was so shocking to see that those scenes in the middle of the film that you're talking about, the ending of this movie, which is very violent, and very purposeful in its conclusion, almost to the extent of Mean Streets, but not, I think, as shocking as Mean Street. You know, Mean Street's ending is very, it's violent and it's very over the top and it's purposeful, and yet it's shocking the audience. I think this is more like just showing the character's downfall. And so
I gotta
just
say,
think,
I don't love the ending of this movie.
no, I don't
It
think
feels like
I feel like they did it just to do it a little bit.
I understand that it's taking the themes of the film to their most extreme.
Yeah,
but
it's a little
at
anticlimactic.
a certain point,
Yeah.
it's not even anticlimactic. It just doesn't feel true to the world. In a movie where the world does feel so well realized, like you're saying, it feels a little movie-ish, a little artificial in ways that so much of the rest of the movie doesn't.
It feels like, weirdly enough, like somebody in a studio was kind of saying, okay, you kind of can't just end this with two friends walking down the street and making up with it. You kind of have to have this big bombastic sort of gun battle assassination attempt at the end or whatever.
Just this
And
big burst of violence.
yeah, it's like, unnecessary, but that's the first time director kind of also maybe too flowing in there as well, and being
He
like,
did say that he basically had free reign on this movie.
yeah. So
which I thought was interesting.
With that, you can tell that like sometimes maybe somebody needs to tell you within your inner circle, maybe
It's not a
we don't put that in there.
disastrous.
It's not a bad ending,
but
but it's also not necessary. I don't think it's necessary. Would you agree with that?
I don't even know if unnecessary is the right word. It just feels like it kind of comes from a different movie.
Well, then, therefore, it's kind of unnecessary to the flow of this film.
Well, I don't know if anything is necessary or otherwise. But,
okay, now we're getting into semantics.
No, I mean, I don't know if you can call.
I just don't think that you need to do
nature
this.
of art. What is
That's what I'm saying.
Necessary.
I don't think you need to do it, and then therefore.
But then the question is, what is a better ending?
That's a good question.
I think the better ending, and this is, I kind of hate this version of criticism where you're like, I'm going to rewrite the movie. But I mean, to me, the better ending is he follows him, he dies, then he's sort of so overcome with grief in that moment, and kind of that's how it ends. And it's like, will he ever return back to Nor, or is this kind of the end of, or is he just going to move on in the same way that he left his last girlfriend, who ended up finding happiness and love and a family, and is he just doomed to this life of isolation and waywardness? Maybe that's the better way to end the movie, I think, rather than as definitively as this movie ends.
Yeah,
no,
for sure. No, I agree. But I think that too. I think that this is a movie of two. I mean, obviously, this is a movie of two different kind of halves, or not even halves, just two different stories. You have this forbidden romance, but yet it's almost like an oasis, an escape from this violent, almost like Neverlandish sort of boy, testosterone driven society that he's living in. You know what I mean? It's very much this idea of these guys running around doing all these crimes. There's no rhyme or reason behind a lot of it. They're really all infighting amongst themselves to go up to a next level that doesn't even exist beyond them, because they're young and they're dumb and they're impressionable. Money and power and violence drives them. It's very machismo, in a lot of ways when you're really looking at how they're interacting. Their faces are right up against one another. Every little word can be twisted into almost a bullet within itself. And I just think that Wong Kar-wai's direction here, along with this wonderful screenplay, in my opinion, really captures the sense of that our main character here is lost between, you mentioned it, Jay, having an identity of what they actually want out of all of this. What he is really saying, and I think that that's the purpose, is that money, power, love, sex, greed, all of it is kind of empty, really, and almost a little bit hollow. And as I was watching it, it's like I was seeing as if kind of thinking about Keitel a lot in Mean Streets, and how De Niro is this ticking time bomb in it. And there is this essence when you're watching that of he's going to go down and he kind of wants to get out, but he's so good at this and he's so ingrained into it. It's not like there's another option. And in here, we're finding our character try to find another option, even if it means going down this path, I think, of love that is just not out of the norm, and because he doesn't live a normal life, you know what I mean? And so
he seems very lost.
He's very lost,
directionless.
It is very fairy tale-ish and sort of Peter Pan-ish, of the sense of being a lost boy and being of somebody that is trapped within a confine that they have chosen to be in, but they don't necessarily want to be in, and the powers that be won't allow them to.
And he's attached himself to this guy who is so reckless and unpredictable,
to his time bomb, essentially.
Yes,
and fly in this film. So
but he has this real sense of loyalty to him. In that, I mean, it's a very similar dynamic to what you see in Mean Streets, right? Yeah. And here, I do think there is an argument to be made that it is a little more layered here, even if
it
it's
is
funny because this is, in many ways, I would say that this movie on the broadest scale, I would say this movie is a little more nuanced than something like Mean Streets, but Fly is like the least nuanced character in history.
No, it's very basic.
A maniac.
Yeah, he's just a
he's the kind of guy who will get arrested over fried fish balls. That's what kind of guy he is. And
they look good, by the way. I
don't know. I wasn't so sure. It looks like a lot of batter. Looks like the batter and look, I mean, I love fried batter, obviously, but your ratios.
We live in the
right.
South. Fried batter is like our thing, dude.
Yeah, but still, I felt like they were a little over battered.
Okay, all right.
I don't know.
Food critic here, not doing well.
But Fly, I mean, absolute wild man. I mean, from the jump and throughout the entirety of the film, he cannot get out of his own way, and by proxy, he can't get out of Wa's way.
Yeah,
which is honestly pretty tragic because you do see Wa realize this traditional form of happiness, but it's almost like he's scared of normalcy, right? And he's scared of being outside of the danger, even though it kind of feels like early on in the film, it kind of feels like he's a lower level he's really good at his job, but on the street level, and it kind of feels like he wants to be up in, middle management of the mob. And in some ways it is that kind of sense of arrested development and stagnation that comes with that life of trying to rise up with your work, where it sort of consumes everything around you and it sacrifices your love life. And you have this sense, you think you have this sense of purpose. And your sense of purpose extends not only to that job, but the people that you work with and that you feel a sense of loyalty to. But that comes at the expense of your own personal well-being. And certainly by the end of this film, obviously, what's a lower level of well-being than no longer being alive? I don't think there is one.
I don't think so either.
And that's what happens in the film.
No, for sure. I mean, you have, like I mentioned, I think that, Fly is essentially De Niro. Only even De Niro, to me, I mean, I don't know when the last time you saw Mean Street was, Jay.
I saw it for the first time during your series.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. So it's recency on the brains too.
Yes.
Okay. See, to me, Fly is, I think, more of a nuanced character than De Niro in that film, because De Niro, in my opinion, in that film, when we talked about it, and the more I've thought about it over the years, is just straight up just a cancer that is spreading throughout Keitel, and there's no way to get around it. There's no way. There's no outs, because he keeps getting pulled back in by, and also I believe he's like, Keitel's dating his sister at the time too in that film too. So there's a lot of complexities within their relationship, but they're tethered together regardless. And because of the money he owes, because of the violence that he's conducted and everything there, this relationship is much more, it feels almost as if it's more out of pride. It's more out of the fact that, you see one of the other brothers that is picking on him, that's picking on Fly, and is extremely singling him out throughout this film. And essentially it is a power struggle, it's a power dynamic between both Fly and Wah, and they don't like this. Like, and obviously it's like, if you were working for me, Jay, and somebody was pushing you around, I wouldn't like it either. You know what I mean? And so he feels very akin to him because of this sort of boss, minion relationship. But then there's also this just relationship that they have between the two of them, and it goes beyond just what it really is. It becomes more familial. It becomes more like a brotherhood, it becomes a bond. And that is where he's drawn back into him, I think, a lot. And then a lot of his actions, yes, are very unthought. They're very emotional.
Yes, he certainly acts on emotion.
He's
No
more
doubt about
acting
it.
on emotion. I think De Niro's more acting on chaos, and is
Well-
in that film. But I think the emotion here is just because you're pushing people to an extreme, and you're pushing him to a level up in which he's not going to take it anymore, and then it pushes that even to an extent where he is so battered and bruised. I think the scene of when Wong comes to try to find him, and they're in front of everyone, and they bring him in, and there's that, I think, one of the great shots of this film where Wong takes the gun and shoots through the other brother's pants,
Yeah.
and then there's just, and it's
Tony?
It is what, I'm sorry.
Tony is his
Tony
name,
is his name. Yes.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I kind of jolted in my seat because the shot, it's all done in sort of 24 frames there, and then it goes right back immediately just for that shot to 8, and then it goes right back into the scene, like you're in a play almost in a sense. But there's this like jolt of adrenaline that's put there for a second, and it's so unlike anything you normally get to see. And yet you see the ramifications of Fly's actions there, and they're really essentially on the run. They're throughout the rest of the film, it feels like their actions from that moment, they really have to be together because they don't have another choice.
Yeah,
I guess.
And it is, I think you are onto something there as far as the nuance of the De Niro character in Mean Streets. And we don't have to keep talking about Mean Streets. But
No, I don't think we need to, though. I think, like, obviously the relationship between Wong Kar-wai, I believe, like, The Grandmaster was produced by Martin Scorsese, if I'm not mistaken.
Scorsese, obviously one of the great supporters of international cinema.
Exactly. And so, but I mean, he does go out here and say that it is a big inspiration on this film, whether or not that it's not. I don't think it's a ripoff, because I think there's enough. I think there's enough differences, but the bones of both of these structural pieces of film are very much the same, especially when you're looking at the crime aspect of it.
Not that these are, there are other films like this too. These are not the most original concepts in the world.
No, but they're pretty, for like first time features also and everything too, essentially, they're kind of birds of a feather, but they're different because I think that the difference here is the romance in this film is much more important. And exactly. And it's much more like realized and tender, as opposed to like in that film where it's very throwaway, not really the greatest thing put in.
Yeah, and we haven't even
gone that far.
Cheung. We haven't gotten to Maggie Cheung at all yet, which we certainly have to talk about. But
yes,
going back to the Fly De Niro comparisons there, I think you're kind of right about De Niro is kind of driven by greed and almost like hedonism, and he wants to have short-term gains and short-term experiences and Fly, meanwhile,
it's also very religious too, like the the Catholic guilt and that, and almost being tempted by the devil and all that stuff.
Fly seems almost more driven by like legacy and making a mark, right? He's not.
It's different in culture.
The short term, he wants respect, and because he is so insecure in many ways, which a lot of the characters in this movie are. Yeah, he wants what
Wah already has, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah, he kind of resents Wah almost. So it's this duality of Wah wants to be around him because he feels so he knows that Fly is so insecure, but Fly is insecure because Wah has been so much more successful than he is.
Yes.
So it's this. It's the snake eating its tail, essentially.
But it's also successful. But yet, the way in which I think Fly sees it is what some of us see in the film within Wah's character, of how effortless his leadership is. Yeah, but not seeing what we see throughout the film, which is he is a skilled assassin almost. He is. When you have to get him to that point, it's a dangerous thing, and you want him on your side, but that scene in which they're talking about the fish balls and the cops take the card and everything and it's money, and there's this frustration from Wong because he's not getting it. He's not getting that to build a legacy. It takes time and it takes a stepping stool, and Fly doesn't see it that way. He says, no. I make enough noise, I'll get there. And he goes, and essentially they go, you make enough noise, you'll be dead. And he goes, well, what a ride it would be. And it's a difference in philosophy that I find really fascinating.
If I die in a ball of fire, I will have made my mark.
Exactly.
Right?
And the other, and Wa's like, no, I want retirement. You know,
and Wa's like, this stuff I'm doing is not cool. My life is not cool. It's just the only way I can survive. Right? Because of what I do, I can't really do anything else. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to have to kill people anymore. It's not my favorite thing to do. I have this other thing now. I see the potential of living a life free of these shackles that I have been tied to for my adult life. And that's compelling to me, but you need to stop because I feel compelled at every moment to take care of you, to make sure that you are okay at the expense of my own well-being. Yeah. And that's the kind of core conflict of the movie, is this inner conflict within Wa. As many machinations as there are outside of that, really it's about Wa's sense of loyalty, and whether his loyalty is to the people that he has grown up with and the people that he feels responsible for, or is it to the new people in his life that are bringing him this sense of joy and purpose that he's never really felt before. And that's pretty complicated stuff. Pretty complicated stuff. It's good stuff. And we got to talk about Maggie Cheung.
I was just going to transition to that.
Just luminous. I mean, immediately she'd been in other stuff. She'd been in, Police Story, and
she's a pretty big actress by this point.
She is a big deal, and we will certainly talk about her a few times here in this Wong Kar-wai series.
Yes, we will.
But I mean, immediately in this film, it's just like, boom, gorgeous person. Although Wong Kar-wai is so kind of cheeky with the way he introduces her, where she has the mask on.
She's got the mask,
which like, I was like, we're gonna hide one of the most beautiful people that's ever appeared on film. Right?
Yeah, we're gonna hide this angelic face, behind this mask. And it was like, for a second there, I was like, wait, a mask. I was like, what?
Well, the mask, yes, that certainly played. I mean, it plays in a completely different context.
Yeah, it does.
In 2023, the mask. But she is wonderful, and the way that she has this timidity to her, certainly early on in the film, but you also kind of feel this confidence within her the whole time, which I think is just innate in Maggie Cheung. In the things that I've seen her in, I just think she really has that, because she is so luminous. She was Miss Hong Kong, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's a pretty good thing to put on the resume, I guess.
Yeah, and then she has this wonderful acting career that ends early. I actually don't know. I'm sure it'll come up in my research we will at some point. I don't know why she stopped, but
we'll find out.
I don't know. Maybe it was she was kind of forced out of the industry. I don't know. Maybe she was just like, you know what, I'm over it. I don't know.
Sometimes people get burned out.
Yeah, she was in some absolute classics, and she still kind of does stuff with Wong where he's like, I'm making this 25-minute short. Will you be in it? And Maggie Cheung feels this sense of loyalty to Wong for sure, which is really cool, especially since Wong is kind of like Cheung. He's like, you make something every 10 years. Let's get it going.
We'll make a TV show.
Make an HBO miniseries. Let's do it.
Make a miniseries.
Right?
Yeah, he's kind of like in the age now, which we're gonna learn so much more
he's
about.
Honestly, not that old is what I was shocked to see. He's only 29 when he made this movie.
Yeah, but what I was going to say was, it's like he's like at the age now where he's just like, I'll get to something. I don't know when it'll be, but I'll be around. I'll be around.
Well, that's kind of what he's been saying now. It's just like, I got stuff.
Yeah, I'll make it when I want to. Thank you. You know what I mean? It's kind of,
it's really interesting. I mean, again, 10 movies.
But also, when we talk about The Grandmaster, that is a movie that essentially kind of like in the modern era kind of broke him a little bit. And so it'll be interesting when he ever does make another film, because of the fact that there's like 95 cuts to that movie, and big
think he'll make a Marvel?
Oh yeah, I think he's, they got anybody for King Dynasty yet?
I don't know.
There you go. Loki season 3.
That would be a wild movie.
Man, that would be.
In the Mood for Love is in the cultural lexicon right now because of Everything Everywhere All at Once, right?
There you go. I think that
now's the time to pounce on the moment.
Oh, I mean, sure. I mean, I would hope that people make more in the move for loves than they do make MCU movies based off of Wong Kar-wai, but okay, yeah, sure. But no, I just think that there's obviously the opening sort of seems with her there in the apartment, and then we kind of.
What about the great scene? I mean, we're going to talk about plenty of great food scenes, but there's a great food scene in this movie where she makes him a meal, and that's where they kind of really bond for the first time. Wong Kar-wai, all about the food bonding, and this is the genesis of that. So,
I mean, that was kind of like, it was almost reminiscent of like watching another great director, Park Chan-wook, this year with watching Decision to Leave, and that scene where he's in her house and making that meal where they're sort of connecting there in that film too. Like food is a unifier within many cultures, but especially within Asian cultures. And it's just also a very romantic gesture. But then I think of the scene for me of this film that I was kind of, no pun intended, my breath was taken away, was the take my breath away sort of needle drop. Right. and this almost end chasing in the rain almost sequence of finding her and just wanting to tell her, essentially what she means, but then it's to him, but then there's the tug and pull of that, her chasing after him, them getting up onto those steps of where he's staying at, and her hesitation, Jay, up on those steps. I mean, it's tantalizing.
And then they kind of recreate that moment later when he's so battered and bruised and he's falling down the stairs. I mean,
yes.
It's just a wonderful visual storytelling. It's all about the juxtapositions. I mean, look, I actually got the color scheme, the reds and the blues back here.
There you go.
Recreating the Wong Kar-wai experience.
You really did.
As Tears Go By experience in the background here, but that is certainly a motif that we see very frequently in the film. These beautiful reds, a lot of these neon colors, and very often these blues. Certainly at night, you really see that. And then it's really interesting actually. Some of the most like romantic, emotionally cathartic moments in the film all actually have kind of a more drab color palette, which is a nice kind of ironic use of visual storytelling. It's very clever, this Wong Kar-wai, I will say, in this film that again really plays out plot-wise. One, it's pretty plot thin.
No, it's
like
very
happens.
It's very loose with the plot. Yeah.
But it has this deep emotional core to it. I think I'm actually liking it more as we talk about it.
It's a really good one. It's a good one to start a series off. I mean,
a great opening film. And there's an interesting quote I read in my book from Wong where he says, when I was growing up, I watched all these movies and I didn't know what the difference was between like a commercial movie and an art house movie. We'd go see Fellini and it was like, I didn't know that was any different than Star Wars, right? I mean, it's just like these movies were movies, and that makes sense when you watch this movie, which is like this blend of art house cinema and commercial fare. And then I think certainly he kind of leans more into his poetic sensibilities later as it goes. But it's really interesting to see him kind of getting the opportunity here, the commercial opportunity, where they say, make us money. And he makes this movie. He kind of can't help but let that poetic side of him seep in. And this movie did okay at the box office. I think it made a lot of money, more of its money outside of Hong Kong, actually. Yeah. And it did okay, enough to make a couple more movies, and we'll get into those movies. And eventually he gets kind of burnt out on the process and starts making what many would describe as his most interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll get there. But this is not interesting by any stretch. This is an incredibly compelling piece of work that is, I mean, it is incredibly entertaining with some really good action set pieces, some genuinely very good action filmmaking. Again, that sequence where he's kind of like in the tarp and you have the cats everywhere and the slow motion, and there's that wonderful image. Again, the reds and the blues where you have this blue black backdrop and you have this one line of blood going down his forehead.
It's good.
Just a wonderful image. And this is a weird image for me to be like the one that I remember, but after he gets completely beaten and he's with Lenore in the bedroom and she's like icing his face.
Yeah.
And it goes to this overhead shot of this ice bucket swirling.
Yeah.
Which is just a shot that you wouldn't see in these kind of movies. And it's just kind of this image of kind of the banality of the world in that moment, or the banality of the things they have to do in the aftermath of this extremely dramatic moment. And that's the kind of stuff that really sets this movie apart. It's a really compelling movie stylistically and tonally. It's really, really good. I'm bumping this bad boy up a half star. This
You're moving.
awesome.
Oh, you're moving it to 4.5.
This is
huh?
great. I'm moving this thing to 4.5. I really do think it's that good. I do. As I'm talking about it, there's just a lot to unpack. There really is. To unpack.
There really is, and I mean, I think it's a pretty brisk, hour 49.
Is it? Yeah, hour 50. Yeah,
after 59.
No, I think it's like an hour 40. I think it's like an hour 40.
Yeah, it's not that long. It moves pretty quickly. Too, because I know that's like the debate every week now about if how long movies are nowadays. I get so angry about that every week, Jay. There's like 95 people are like 90-minute movies. I'm like,
the week that we are recording this podcast is maybe the most insufferable article about movie length that has ever been published.
Who released that?
I don't know. Somebody in Britain.
Oh,
like The Guardian, maybe.
Oh, yeah, that stupid thing. Yeah, that's what I did see that. Yeah, that was stupid.
Yeah. But also, we will sing the praises of a 90-minute movie. I love a 90-minute
Listen, a 90-minute movie is great because you want to know why? It was designed to be 90 minutes. Some movies are designed.
Well, what does it say? What's the Ebert quote? Right, a good movie can never be too long, and a bad movie can never be too short.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, it's each movie is going for different obstacles, and the length is not the goal. It's the story, and it's everything in between. Like, there are some of my favorite movies of all time. We mentioned in that top 10, and some of those were 3 hours long. Like,
yeah, plenty of mine were 3 hours.
My number one favorite film of all time is The Godfather. That movie's like 2 hours and 40-something minutes. Like, I'm not cutting anything out of that.
Tree of Life is 2:30. Barry Lyndon is over 3 hours.
3 hours.
That was my number 2. Heat is about 3 hours. That was right up there for me.
Shortcuts
Shortcuts is over 3 hours. I think those are my top 4. I think they're all like 2.5. Most of them are 3 hours, and then Tree of Life is like 2.5.
Well, I mean, like, like some of my favorite films are like 2 hours long. Some of them are 3. Some of them are 90 minutes. You know what I mean? Like,
how long is Crank 2?
How long is Crank 2? That's
actually, I still have the Blu-ray here from our last podcast.
It is probably an hour and 35 minutes.
I bet it's longer than that.
Is it longer than that?
No. Holy cow, Ryan! 95 minutes.
Heck yeah! Look at that!
Wow, unbelievable!
What do I win?
What a moment!
Oh man, I don't know what I win.
TikTok that one.
Sure, put it all over the internets. But yeah, no, I think that this is a great debut. You can the great thing about a debut for me is, can you tell the director's voice within the first 45 minutes of the film? Because we see a lot of first-time directors nowadays, Jay. We see a lot of first-time films. We see a lot of films, period, every single year.
We do.
I don't feel a voice. And so then when they make a couple of movies and I go back to that first film that they ever made, I go, oh, it wasn't there. They found it maybe in the second film, or maybe they found it, or maybe there's parts of it. When you watch this movie, he's there through and through from the beginning. It's a very confident debut. I mean, it premiered in Cannes in 1988. A lot of great, reviews and success that came out of that. And then obviously he was able to sort of go on and become who he was and the film success and everything. But when you have complex characters and confident direction mixed with, I think there's some really great tug and pull within that screenplay. In doing some inventive things with pre-existing sort of genre and pre-existing sort of action sequences and everything, and giving you a smattering. This is like kind of a movie. Like, I think that this might actually be like a good, perfect first vehicle to get you involved into the world of Wong Kar-wai, because of the fact it gives a general audience everything you kind of want within a movie. And then when you're done with it, then you're gonna be like, oh, okay, well, I like these parts, I like that part. And then you can pick and maybe and choose which ones you like. It's a good barometer starter. And I think it's kind of like the best sort of like quintessential or quintessential, sorry, movie to start a career off. Jay, is this like one of your favorites that we've started a series off with? We've done a lot of good first watches.
I'd have to think about it. I mean, I don't think it's, as I'm thinking immediately, I don't think it's quite as good as Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
Colonel Blimp.
Not as good as Colonel Blimp.
Is it?
Which is, I mean, that's a high bar.
Double Indemnity.
It's probably
Bound.
better than MASH.
Yeah, it's better than
I
MASH.
probably like Bound more than this. Double Indemnity is better than this.
It's better than Dr.
But those are not necessarily always their first films.
No.
Right? Those are just the first ones that we covered
in the series. No.
Altman
What's a
made
first
3 movies before he made MASH that nobody has ever heard of.
What's a series we covered from the beginning to the end? Is it better than Piranha 3D? Piranha 2 3D?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, we didn't get to cover that.
No,
one,
you're thinking of Piranha 2 3D, the new one. It's Piranha 2: The Spawning.
The Spawning. I'm sorry, James Cameron. Yeah. I didn't mean to offend you.
I'm trying to think what others. When you go back to the older directors, they are kind of workmen where they work their way up.
She Gotta Have It.
The movies that they want to make. It is better than that.
Yeah, that's better than She Gotta Have It. Love Spike, but way better than that. Please, baby, please.
It's like it's
it's one of the good
5 of the first ones that we've covered, and one of the best first films from a director that we've covered. Because again, a lot of the times we just skip the first one they did.
A lot of the times
we're not doing that with Wong Kar-wai.
But a lot of the times those first films are exactly what do we always call those first films? This is fine, but
can't wait to see what they do next.
There you go. That's the ultimate extra film line. Those are the ultimate Jay and Ryan lines right there.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what you do next time.
What was that movie called? Little Woods?
Yeah. That's where it kind of came from, right? That one? That one in
God. The I was going to say the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. The
Cameron Pope?
Cameron, whatever that one was called.
Yeah. Fast Colors?
Moretz.
What's the Fast Colors too? There's there's a ton of them. Yes, God, Yes is another one.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a ton. Yes. God, yes. Yeah, indeed. No, there's a lot of them. But yeah, Jay, anything else you want to say about the film before we wrap this one up?
I will say this. Okay. Interestingly, this is, his first film. He did not use cinematographer Christopher Doyle, and for the next 15 years or so, he is going to be attached at the hip to Christopher Doyle. And when you talk about Wong Kar-wai being one of the most stylistically unique, idiosyncratic filmmakers of all time, I think that really starts with this partnership with Christopher Doyle. So, again, while you see a lot of what will make him great, he really starts to separate himself once he partners with Doyle, and I think that's going to be a really interesting thing to track as we go forward. But this is a really, really good first film. I mean, really good. And I mean, I can't wait to talk more about Maggie Cheung. I still don't think we really did her justice.
We didn't. I mean, we didn't scratch the surface.
She's great. I think she's actually probably my favorite performance in the film, and I think she is part of what separates this film from its genre compatriots as well. So just high level, broadly, fantastic performance. I think she brings such a sense of longing and kind of this idea of being at a certain crossroads, and then the joy that she exudes in these moments is really fantastic. So really good movie. Great start to the Wong Kar-wai series. Bring it on. Glad to be back with the movie series. Let's go. Boom.
I think also, too, speaking of Maggie Cheung, I think her, she provides that comfortability that WoW needs.
Yes, there's a sense of calm.
She's so calm. It's very easy to fall in love with her because
even when WoW is getting so mad at her, she still kind of has this sense of stability to her.
Yeah. He's the escape she needs. Whether it's right, it's not really even the question the movie kind of asks. It's just, it's really, I mean, there's just nothing I think better. There's just this wonderful shot of him carrying these boxes of, what is it, like chicken legs or chicken wings or just these boxes in general, whatever that she has to do.
Oh,
for
when
work.
he's working with her at the restaurant.
Yeah, and and they're just walking and talking, and it's from these moments of violence you get these real romantic, somber moments of
That's
tenderness.
the duality of the movie. That's the beauty, baby.
It's a beautiful balance between it, but it's really carried by her angelic performance there, and I think that she's great. I also want to give a shout out real quick to Donnie Chung and Teddy Robbins, who did, I think, a really great job of the score here, but then also just the director Wong's influences of using needle drops when you need to. I think that, again, I cannot state this enough, the use of Take My Breath Away was...
Which they use a lot.
They lose a lot, but like especially in that middle bit when these two lovers are coming together and kind of coalescing with one another. I think that it's like, damn, that's good. That's kind of how you want to use a cover of a famous song like that. And so
it is. I mean, obviously he was always going to use the Chinese version of the song, but
it works perfectly
for an American audience, who's so used to the English version of the song. It really plays incredibly well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I don't know if JD and Brendan have seen the film. I think JD has seen it. I think he was watching it because he's watching stuff along with us. So he has some stuff on Letterboxd. Letterboxd.com/InSessionFilm is where you can find all that. You can follow us on
Letterboxd.com/Ryan McQuaid.
It's Ryan McQuaid 77, to be fair.
There you go.
Jay, where can they find you on Letterboxd?
Jay Ledbetter, I think. I don't know.
I think. Okay.
think
You got to figure that out in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to do it for this first episode of the movie series.
Wow.
So New era. We're gonna have. You can follow us also InSession Film on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to email us your thoughts, if you've seen As Tears Go By, or if you like the new format, or if you're just happy that we're back in the consciousness.
This review,
this
review was almost as long as their review of Cocaine Bear. So Wong Kar-wai, Cocaine Bear,
same cinematic universe.
Lot to break down.
Like, review, and subscribe us here on YouTube. If you're listening to us, then you can do iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, SoundCloud, all those
Drop us a
places.
review on iTunes.
We'd love those. We're in the Lamb Podcast Network, as well as all that stuff. All you want to listen to, all this stuff on, we
can do YouTube stuff now.
Yeah.
Hey guys, smash that like button.
Smash it. Don't just
make
click
sure
it,
that you subscribe to get all our new episodes every single time that we drop one. And make sure you follow us on TikTok. We got TikTok.
Yeah, we got TikToks now. We're relevant.
Film. Search us there for the youths.
Yeah. And then what else, Jay? Real quick, bonus content. You can find that at InSessionFilm.com.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/InSessionFilm. You could donate at InSessionFilm.com/donate. There's the mobile app. You can find those InSessionFilm.com/apps. There's an InSession Film store. You can find that at InSessionFilm.com. Yeah. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff.
We're good at this. What's coming up soon? What do we got? We got the show this week. I think we're going to talk about sports movies for Creed 3.
Yeah, we got sports movies coming up.
Next week, obviously, we'll have a Creed 3 review.
Yep. And then it's
going to be an exciting week next week.
Yeah, and then we'll be back next week.
Oscars are coming up.
With our second review, Jay, of Days of Being Wild. That'll be the second film in our Wong Kar-wai series.
Can't wait.
Can't wait for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, I think that's going to do it here for us. Thank you guys for listening and watching.
That was really efficient. And
it wasn't chaotic at all, but you know what? That's exactly what we provide here. But we'll see you all next time.
Do you find yourself wishing you had more energy, healthier habits, or fun family activities? At the YMCA, you can find your passion, find family fun, and find your happy place, all while supporting your community. Join the Y in March with a $0 enrollment fee and enjoy motivating group exercise classes, heated pools, pickleball, and so much more. Visit ymcadc.org to learn more and to find your nearest Y in DC, Maryland, or Virginia today.